According to Sue and Sue, the multiracial population is the fastest growing racial group in the United States, with a 276% increase from 2010 to 2020. People of two or more racial heritages are nearly 34 million. People of mixed ancestry are often ignored, neglected, and considered non-existent, especially when it comes to representation in educational materials, media portrayals, and psychological literature. Multiracial individuals are also faced with questions like, what are you? Or, where are you from? For instance, my children and spouse come from diverse cultural backgrounds, which is why they look vastly different. As a result, we get stares, and sometimes strangers are bold enough to ask if my children are adopted or related even. This is why this subject is dear to my heart. People are often curious but do not understand that their curiosity or microaggressions are hurting the people that they were asking or curious about. So being culturally aware is highly important for all persons, not only the therapist. To improve cultural awareness and decrease microaggressions and bias, to add to the multiculturality, individuals are the multicultural individuals are the most underrepresented people in the United States because of their vast cultural identities and backgrounds. Oftentimes, multiracial people feel as though they have to choose a side or conform to society's box that they're put in. This situation becomes even more complex for a multiracial individual who is the only one in the household. For instance, if that multiracial person is the only mixed person in their household or family, it can be particularly notable. The struggles become more complex because that individual will now struggle with their identity, and unfortunately, the people in their home cannot help them. The world will now put them in a racial category or box based on how they look. For example, the book mentions the one-drop rule. What the one-drop rule is a class-based social system that maintains the myth of monoracialism by assigning a person of mixed racial heritage to the least desirable racial status. This system was institutionalized in 1894, and society still categorizes individuals based on their physical appearance, failing to consider their family or true cultural background. This is why it's important for the counselor to know this information to foster a better therapeutic relationship with the client, increase cultural awareness, increase cultural sensitivity, and enhance the effectiveness of the sessions. Mental health professionals can increase their understanding of multiracial people and their lived experiences by increasing awareness of facts, placing themselves in environments with multiracial families, knowing such information like the biracial baby boom. So what is the biracial baby boom? It is a term used to describe the significant increase in the number of children born to parents of different races. This trend is the result of rising interracial marriage rates, which grew after the U.S. Supreme Court struck down an anti-miscegenation law in 1967 with the Loving versus Virginia ruling. This surge has led to a growing multiracial population and has blurred traditional racial boundaries. Following this ruling, the number of interracial marriages and unions increased substantially. For example, from 1970 to 1991, the number of interracial marriages in the U.S. grew from approximately 310,000 to 994,000. Increase in multiracial births led to a corresponding rise in the number of children born to parents of different races. The percentage of children born to parents of different races grew from 1% in 1968 to 3.4% in 1989, and it continues to climb in the following decades. With this said, statistics, this lets the counselor know that there is an immense amount of multiracial people in the United States. So, the importance of having multicultural knowledge for multiracial individuals is a counselor needs cultural knowledge of multiracial clients to build trust, tailor interventions, and provide more effective and inclusive care. And the importance of understanding the worldview of multiracial individuals is to provide effective, culturally responsive therapy by building trust, fostering a stronger therapeutic relationship, and addressing the unique stressors and complexities of their identity. So the importance of counselor self-awareness is crucial in counseling for therapists to effectively use themselves as a tool, enabling them to understanding their own bias, triggers, and emotional responses to prevent them from negatively impacting the client. Importantly, simply having multicultural knowledge and understanding will help the therapist understand how the client fits into this world. According to Sue and Sue, multiracial people make up a little bit over 10% of the national population. People who identify as belonging to more than one racial group primarily includes white Americans and some other race, like for example, white American and Native American, or white and black, or white and Asian. So knowing this information helps increase cultural knowledge and cultural skills. I chose this chapter because this is something that's near and dear to my heart. I am a product of multicultural grandparents. I have multicultural nieces and nephews, multicultural cousins, and more importantly, I do have multicultural children. So it's extremely important for me to really understand what my family members deal with on a day to day. Really understand the microaggressions and the questions that are asked about their racial background. I do know that my children, especially my oldest son, has had so many questions about his identity, and sometimes he has a hard time addressing and talking about his identity because there are different. It is an array of things of cultural background, cultures that he have. He is mixed race, but with several different races. So I love that in chapter 15 to 17, Sue and Sue of Counseling the Culturally Diverse went into great detail about the struggles that individuals of all races deal with. But more importantly, the most underrepresented group is the multiracial individuals. Multiracial people are underrepresented because of the complexity of their genetic and racial makeup. Some multicultural people can come from several different cultural and racial backgrounds and have different values, beliefs, and backgrounds. So it's definitely its own category that needs to be recognized as more affected. I love that the author talked about the demographics and characteristics of individuals of multiracial descent and gave us a little history lesson on how some of these multiracial shifts happen in life. For example, the biracial baby boom. The book also provided statistics from the U.S. Census telling us about the complex psychological and political debate about allowing people to check more than one box for their racial identities. It was argued that asking a multiracial person to choose is unethical. The book also went into great detail about historical data about the biracial baby boom and discussed how statistics hide how multiracial people live their daily lives and how data do not capture how identity is performed and understood. I was able to learn a new term, which is monoracial identity, which essentially means one race identity. The goal is to prevent mixing blood. Sadly, in our society, if you have one drop of black in you, society considers you black. But other races mixed, and they do not have that such rule. The book questions why the offspring of black union is often considered black to our society, but not so much as for other races, like for example, white and Asian. The book states that many multiracial individuals find that society imposes a racial identity upon them. So I like that the book identifies the struggles that multicultural people deal with. It mentions that identity is often influenced by not only the phenotype and racial heritage, but also by societal status associated with their particular background and the context in which they live and work. The book highlights the strengths of having multicultural identity with support from several cultural communities. And the book mentions that in the future, individuals can be more visible on television and in movies. The book proceeds to go over challenges, which are racial and ethnic ambiguity. That means when people are not easily able to distinguish the mono race or the race category of the multiracial individual from their phenotype characteristics. The book addresses intermarriage. It addresses stereotypes, myths, discrimination, racism, and microaggressions. Chapter 15 of Counseling the Culturally Diverse did a great job at addressing all the issues multicultural and multiracial people in America face, and the author Sue and Sue did not leave out any categories. I am glad I was able to learn about the issues multicultural people deal with and really have self-awareness and awareness about the complexity of multicultural and multiracial people's lives. The author did an absolute amazing job. In conclusion, we discussed why counselors must be aware of multiracial issues. Multiracial people often face bias, microaggressions, racism, and frequent questions about their identity. Counselors must be culturally sensitive to support a positive, healthy, therapeutic relationship.